And there we go. There we go. It's always something. Um, Here we are, 6 p.m. Pacific. Another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. Good to see you. My voice is just a little bit hacked up. I got back Sunday evening from VO Atlanta, and where I was on about 8 panels. I had what they call a breakout session, which is a little speech you give about something for an hour, and 2 X sessions. And then there was all that loud talking in the bar at the end of every evening. You know what I mean. The music is playing. You're having a good time with the voiceover community, laughing, joking. It was amazing, amazing. Um, I cannot stress how much you will love going to VO Atlanta next year. Record-breaking audience, record-breaking attendance this year. Each year it has gone up, and again it went up. The guests were amazing, the speakers amazing, the panelists amazing. The breadth of knowledge that was shared, no matter what genre of voiceover you're interested in, shared. Our community spans the globe. It was just fantastic. And if you go online, you'll see lots of pictures. I didn't take that many pictures myself. A lot of pictures were taken of me and with me. But just an amazing time was had by all. I want to remind you that all the Ask Dave Fennoy Anythings live on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training, and I would encourage you to subscribe if you will. If you are interested in coaching with me, davefennoy.com, click on the Study VO tab at the top, and you can book yourself for 1, 5, 10, 20 sessions. And yes, I do demos, but only game demos. So that is available to you too. And you can follow me on Twitter X at Dave Fennoy VO. Let's say hello to my guest. There she is, Susie Valerio. Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. And
Hello.
Susie, it was so good to see you at VO Atlanta.
Oh, always great to see you, Dave. It was awesome. I loved it. I've been to many VO Atlantas, but I have to say that this one topped every other VO Atlanta I've been to before.
Wow, 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 wow. So what made this one so much better?
Um, I think that it's a combination of there being more panels. The fact that now, because we can watch everything after, you can kind of enjoy things more, because previously, like, we would go and then you'd get stressed. You had to choose which session you wanted to go into and which panel you wanted to watch. Whereas now, that, whatever you choose, you can go home and next week or whenever, you can just sit down, get a cup of coffee and watch the whole thing again. So I think that to me took off the pressure of running around, although I still you're still
You
running
still run
around because
around,
you want
yeah.
to watch things, you still need to pick your favorite and all of that. But I think that kind of made things more fun.
Well,
And also I
I think,
really like the hotel.
yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things too, because now I can go watch all my fellow panelists, my fellow coaches, and see what they were talking about. I can explore areas of voiceover that I don't do or would like to do, or just want to learn something about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I
Yeah,
think that also the space itself is really good because you can kind of see everyone. It's quite, yeah, there's lots of different rooms, but there's also that central point where we all gather. Yeah, it was great. I loved
that
it.
is very true. But I heard talk from a number of people saying, it's gotten so big. This was the highest number of people we've ever had there. It was more than 1,000 people. I think it was like 1,300 people there. We completely filled the hotel. There was overflow in other hotels. And of course, I heard stories of people who had friends in town and they're staying in guest bedrooms and sleeping on couches. There was some talk of maybe we need to find a bigger venue. That has been the spot for so many years. It seems like home. Um, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But let's talk about you. Um, I believe we first met in London, correct?
Yes, we have. Yeah, yeah. You came
And
over. I think it was Get Your Game On
it was a
first
Get Your Game
time.
On a number of years ago. And one of the things about London is just as cosmopolitan, if not more so, than many of the cities here in in Los Angeles, many cities here in the United States. Um, and you are Brazilian and English. How did that happen?
Well, so I am actually technically Brazilian, just Brazilian, but I've been here for so long that I have a British passport. So I am British and Brazilian, but I was born in Brazil and I was there until I came to England quite young. I was traveling and I stayed for decades.
When you said you were how old were you?
19.
19 years. So you stayed because
19.
was it a fella?
No, I was traveling with a friend and we got here and I didn't have that much money, so I started working and then I realized that there was so much that I wanted to see that I thought, oh, I'm not going to have enough time, like to, all the countries I wanted to visit, all the things I wanted to do in London. So I kind of then started to think about, ooh, maybe I should, I was doing journalism back home in
Uh-huh.
Brazil and drama as well. So I thought, well, maybe I'll go to university in London. And then, yeah, I never left really.
So you work bilingually. Um, a lot of us who are English speakers, we learn to do other accents. Do you do British accents?
Um, when I was doing more stage work and when I was at uni, yes. But nowadays I work mostly on international English and Brazilian that I dial up and down.
Yeah.
Um,
Now
yeah, and Spanish. I
in
do record in
your
Spanish
bio
too.
you specifically said, and you just specifically said there, international English. What is international English?
So basically, it's when people can't tell where you come from. And with me, this happens all the time. Like at Vio Atlanta, the amount of times that people thought that, I was from Wales, from Holland, from people, literally no one ever guesses Brazil. So then at the thankfully at the moment there's a really high demand for that because I do a lot of commercials and corporate and even medical work and they want an accent that is clear English but you don't know where the person comes from. That would be
Ah,
me.
so now you've gone to London. You're 19. Um, you'd been a journalist and apparently an actor because you'd been. So how did you find your way into voiceover, and when was that?
So I went to university and I did a drama and film degree. And in my course, when I finished, I used to do a lot of classes, take a lot of classes at the Actors Centre in London.
Hmm.
And then I just went to this workshop. It was a voiceover workshop. And I thought, because I'm Brazilian, I was like, oh, this is not for me, but I'll go anyway. And then I went, and the guy that was taking the lesson, his name was so he was a BBC producer, and he I read, and he goes like, you should do a demo. I'm like, oh, okay. He said, but you should record in Portuguese. There's a lot of demand for actors that work in different languages. And I was like, oh, because I didn't think my other languages would come in useful because it's like I'm in London, why would they want a kid that is not from here? So this guy kind of adopted me. His name was Bernard Shaw, not the writer,
I was going to
obviously,
say,
but
whoa, back from the grave to adopt you, and
and then I did a demo with him, but I didn't think anything of it. But he gave me a whole bunch of instructions because back then you had to do, like the CDs and you had to send them over and print a cover and all of that.
so what
And so I
years?
did that.
What years were these?
That was like in 1998 kind of thing, late
Oh boy.
90s. So it was before,
In
like,
the
well,
before
the internet
times.
already existed, but, not. And so I did everything he told me, and I sent to a bunch of agencies, and I was like, no one's gonna call, and literally they all called.
Oh my goodness.
So it was incredible because it was for me the investment was quite big, like to kind of do this whole thing. But he was so certain that I kind of went with it. I was like, okay, I'll spend this money I don't have, but and then because I'm a foreign actor, I can be signed with multiple agencies. So I was actually like, I'm still with like all the main agencies in London. Um, but yeah, it was those CDs that I made and sent out, and then obviously, back then you would call the agencies and then you go and meet them, and you had to go into the studio. We didn't have booths and stuff. So yeah, that's how it all started, thanks to
Ah,
Bernard Shaw, not the writer.
Bernard Shaw, not the writer. As a matter of fact, I'll say Bernard Shaw, not the writer.
Yeah.
I bet that's how you introduce him all the time. Uh, so you did this thing that you didn't think, well, I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. And I'll send these demos out. Nobody's going to want me, but they did anyway. So the thing that you thought was going to be your toughest hurdle wasn't. But what was your toughest hurdle? What's been the toughest thing? What's been the thing that you've had to overcome to do voiceover in London?
Um, I think that the main thing is that for a very long time, they would, the agents, and not just the agents, but the production companies and like everyone really, would see foreign actors as just that kind of other language. It's still the case with some of the big agencies in London. There are some agencies here that don't even invite the foreign actors to their Christmas parties, for example.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
represented,
that's a
but
thing.
you don't get the
Yeah,
invite.
that is a thing. That is a thing. And then you see
Wow.
everything on their Instagram. They're lovely. Oh, all the people from so and so agency. And you go like, oh, okay. But I've had
Gee,
this
my
conversation with
invitation must have gotten lost in the mail.
for the 20th Christmas running. But yeah, yeah, that happens. But yeah. Um, so that was hard because you kind of not you're only working on your language, in your language, and they would never consider you for anything else. But well, not recently, a few years back, things started changing, and then now actually most of my work is in English. Um, because obviously I live in London. There is work in Portuguese, but most of the stuff is in English. So that was quite hard, to break the cycle of only being that foreign actor that people think cannot do anything else.
Well, it's
That
interesting.
was.
The fact that when you first started, it was, well, we've got some jobs for you in Brazilian Portuguese. Um, but more and more, you're working in English. What do you think the change is? Is it that there are more people there, or has the industry just changed?
I think it changed. I think that there is more need, especially for things like things that before wouldn't be with an accent, like corporate work. I do a lot of corporate things. I do a lot of medical work. That the medical thing was another. Like I started gradually doing medical things, and then I thought, oh, I'm gonna do a demo. So I spoke to JMC. I was gonna do a bunch of demos, and then I thought I might add the medical, but I wasn't sure. And then he was like, "Oh, I think you should do it." And yet again, I did the one that I didn't think I was going to do, was the one that brought me more work. I've been doing a lot of medical stuff with, over the past few years because of the accent and the fact that I can pronunciate these hard medical words that many people can't pronunciate in English because my parents are doctors. So I think
Ah,
that
ah.
you know it, not that that makes it, it's just kind of I'm not scared of the big words because I
You've
kind
heard
of
them before.
am used to yeah. So I do a lot of medical. um
Narration there.
yeah, but I
You
think
know,
it's a change in the industry. There's more international people working in companies as well. CEOs of big tech companies, or big pharma companies. They're from all over the place. They have staff worldwide. So if you only have American or British on all your audio, you are kind of leaving out all your staff.
Uh, and we find that in this country as well. I think the American voice has become, in some ways, an international voice. Um, First of all, wider variety of the people who actually were here. And because we are a nation of immigrants, much as some people would like to have that go away, um, we're hearing the voices of people who they either came from someplace else or their ancestors came from someplace else. And they're bringing a different music in their voices. Hey, we already have some questions for you. Briscoe VO, awesome hanging with you, ATL Dave. Question for Susie. What is your response to people who say that since there is more authentic casting, that they aren't getting any jobs now?
I think that there's enough work for everyone. I think that authentic casting is not what we should be scared of. I think that, if we are to be worried about anything, would be to be worried about computers, AI taking jobs from humans. I don't think that, because the vast majority of work, and I work in casting as well as an actor, and like the vast majority is general American, or in case of English from the UK, general, either London or RP. That's the bulk of the work. I don't think that our being authentic is denting your work that much. That's
You know,
my 2 cents.
we've had that discussion here in the United States. This very same discussion. Um, After the murder of George Floyd, it really came to a head. I think the nation had to look at the racism in this country, the stories that we told that so many other Americans just didn't believe, thought we were exaggerating, and a number of cartoons, a number of video games that did not have authentic casting, shall we say, or were casting people, white people to play black people and white people to play Indian people and so forth. A lot of those actors either saw the light or were shown the light, and casting directors had a come to Jesus moment. And now we have casting that is much more authentic. If it's for an Asian character, they want an Asian actor. If it's a black character, black actor, so forth and so on. And there was a lot of discussion of, well, we're actors. We're playing people that aren't ourselves. Why are you doing this? Um, and I really believe we have to look at its show business. And all too often, you had fine actors available, willing to do the work, who, because they weren't in this particular clique of white actors, say, they weren't finding opportunities. I remember talking to a casting director said about finding some black women for roles in video games of black characters, and I was told, oh, well, we just couldn't find any. And yes, you could. You didn't look. You didn't look. I like to think we're getting better, that this has been a positive change, and there's enough to go around. Let's see. Mike Cunningham here has Mike, you and your crew, by the way, are bad influence on me. I just want to let you know that. Love you. It really does seem the industry tells you that you should do, Susie. It does. Let's see. Do we have here's one. Lyle McCarty. Susie, I always love hearing about the journey from journalists. working in VO. Did you ever experience any discouraging remarks from your former journalist colleagues? The ethical dilemma? Good question.
Um, well, no, because I have always done the two things parallel. I've always done acting ever since I can remember. So in my head was always like a tough choice between the two things that I really enjoyed so much that my degree was in TV and drama. And then when I finished uni, I worked as an actor for like 10 years. And then I went back to university and did an MA in documentary. So I always kind of had my, so it wasn't that much of a dilemma in the sense that I kind of had the two loves separately in my head, if that. But I think that it's quite because I came more from an acting point of view rather than working as a print journalist. So it was more of a straightforward thing that happened. My colleagues were not kind of surprised. Let's put it that way.
Have you ever thought about coupling your voiceover career with journalism? Maybe being a kind of voiceover journalist, talking about the industry and things that you find out and the dirty underbelly of the voiceover world. Um,
Yeah, I have thought about it. I haven't really. I thought I have been thinking about maybe doing like a podcast or something like that. One thing I do, and I really enjoy, and I do quite a lot. What I have done over the years is work on documentaries and podcasts that are kind of that have like a VO element. So I've got one that I've done recently that is really good, really, really good, that just came out called Dead River. That it was about this dam. It was a mining accident in Brazil, and this journalist basically did this podcast. She worked on it for like 80 years, and she got a whole bunch of Brazilian actors to voice the
mm,
people being interviewed because they were originally interviewed in Portuguese, and it wasn't really dubbing because what she did, it was awesome. So because she worked, it was like a passion project for her. She worked on it for like a very long time. She sent us the script, and when we went to voice it, because it's a podcast, you don't need to do it to picture. She just played us a little bit of the actual interview, and she just let us do the acting with the actual words. And it was
so
very
you
emotional
were
stuff.
whatever the person she was interviewing said. That's what you were saying, and
Yeah,
where it would have been in Portuguese,
exactly.
um, it was in English, but with Brazilian Portuguese accent.
Yeah, but it was yes, exactly. But it was more because we had the freedom to basically just act. So it was more of a reenactment almost. Is such a wonderful podcast, so powerful because it's a massive. Well, it's a there. There's a big lawsuit. Lots of people died. It was a huge accident on a mine, um, and yeah, it's just great to be able to lend my voice to things like that. So I enjoyed it very much. So
You
yeah,
know,
I do.
I'm going to take a question, but I want to come back to this and go a little further. But I got a question here. How much has the voice acting scene changed since 10, 20 years ago? Do you think the internet has made finding voiceover work harder or easier for somebody who would be new to it?
Oh, I think it actually, in many ways, easier. There's more things that need VO. Obviously, with certain things, the rates have gone down massively. But so it's sort of it's better but it's worse situation, isn't it? Like because
It's gonna
before,
balance out. Hey, it's really good
yeah.
over here, but oh, and then we got this over here. So one of the things you're talking about is, say, equipment. The price of enter the business microphone is much less than it once was. All the equipment, if you've got a computer, you're halfway there. the DAW, the interface, all those things cost much less than they once did. There's still some very expensive equipment, but you don't have to have the most expensive equipment to get started. And you can turn a closet into a place to record. So you can spend a lot of money, but you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, closets are often better than other spaces. You guys
yeah.
have awesome closets in the US. We don't have them in the UK.
We have
Here
bigger
we've got like
closets in
tiny
the U.S. than
wardrobes.
any place
You
else in the
do.
world.
You really do.
I remember watching European Vacation years ago, Chevy Chase, and one of the jokes was how small the rooms and closets were. And then I went to London, and oh wow, the rooms and closets are teeny tiny. Uh, it seems like they didn't expect people to have more than a suit, two shirts, couple pairs of pants, and brown and black shoes for
Yep.
guys. I don't know what the women were going to do. I know they always have more clothes than we do. But anyway, so I guess maybe in London they're turning a lot of really tiny little closets into studios. But let me get back on track. The story about the cave-in with the miners and turning that podcast, um, letting that podcast tell that story. It turns into, in some ways, an audio drama. And
Yep.
we were talking earlier about one of the things you do, localization, um, which includes dubbing, but it's a broader term for any time you are changing the language from one thing to another. And I think in so many ways it can open up the world to stories we might not have known. One of the biggest things going on now in the world is if this is a good story here, if this is a great video game here, um, let's dub it into multiple languages. And this is something you do. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I work with a company called Soundcuts. We It's an audio company, and we do all things audio. Adele, the director, is incredible. I mean, we work mostly in English, um, but we are now doing more localization as well. So that's one of the places where I do localization. I also work freelance, finding other languages, so not just Brazilian Portuguese. With Soundcuts, it's mostly like localizing promos, but we also do like we do a lot of video games, but we've also been doing some audio drama work as well, like big productions, but that is in English, but accented English. So with the localization, um, I think it works in many different ways. It depends on what you are localizing. When you're localizing, like promos, for example, we kind of do more with the animations. The actors don't need to lip sync, so it's more individual to each country. And then other projects, when you need to obviously dub and lip sync, it's a different thing. With the audio dramas that I've been working on, I've done a couple with Soundcuts, but they were in English, but they were stories. The first one was Far Cry, so it was the prequel for the game Far Cry: Rise of Revolution, and so with that we had our whole cast was Latin American. So that was not localization, obviously, but it was like a whole cast that was Latin American accented English. And then we did recently Korea Boo, which is South Korean actors, again, accented English. So yeah, I work with foreign actors a lot, and it's a mixture between localization and accented English.
Let me back up there. So you had a localization that you had to do with Korean actors. Did you find a lot of Korean
Oh
actors
no,
in
that
the
was
UK?
not a localization. So that was not a localization. That was actually an original. The original was written for the story happens in South Korea. So it was in English with South Korean actors. Um, you know, all kind of, well, most of the cast. We did have a handful of
And
actors that were
where did you
not.
find all those South Korean actors?
So that was quite challenging because we needed to audition quite a few, like over 100. So yeah, that was not very easy. It was very good fun. I mostly run auditions. Well, myself and Adele, we run auditions in the UK, which were not very successful because there is not that many. We have incredible actors here in the UK, but not very many South Korean actors. Um, so we did UK and LA. We also had some actors in New York, and also some from South Korea. The ones in South Korea was a little bit more difficult because all the work was in English. They needed to have good English, like, with accented, but obviously
I'm
good
sorry, you're
English.
South Korean,
So
but your English accent to play this South Korean just isn't good enough.
yeah, like it had to be like strong, but obviously people, had to be able to understand. Um, so yeah, it was really cool. It was a great process. It took forever. It was like we joked it was like kind of birthing an elephant, like it took so long for the thing to come out. And when it came out, it was so good and cute. It was awesome, but it was like a lengthy process. Um,
Fantastic. Well, I don't think what you're doing could have been done if we didn't have the technology that we have now. The question that was asked a little bit ago, how is it different now than then? And I think technology is probably the biggest thing that anybody from anywhere can do this work. They may not be able to do it at the highest level. If you're Los Angeles, they're going to have some things. If you're in New York, you're going to have some things that maybe you wouldn't have in some other places. Uh, but you can work literally from anywhere now,
yeah.
which, and I also think that's a big reason why we do have so much localization and the
Yeah, I think
ability to do
also
it.
there is the fact that, because we all have access to, all the streaming services have things from all over the world now. So, you can switch on Netflix and watch Squid Game or uh, something from Spain or from Brazil. And so all those things need to be dubbed, and then also on YouTube, for example, or even Instagram, a lot of things need to be localized because, we have access to more content than we ever had before, you know. And also I think we're now people are finding out that, oh, okay, this, I don't know, like with the Korean shows and films, they're awesome. Like people are discovering that other countries tell stories as well, so that all needs to be localized and dubbed. So yeah, casting eth- ethnically or ethically or whatever
Well, ethnically
might
and ethically.
exactly might seem like something that it's gonna lose your work if you were the people that were getting all the work before. But there's so much more work. Like there's all this dubbing coming in and all these things that need to be localized. All the, everyone can make videos. So on all levels, there is more work for the people starting out, getting paid less and doing smaller things for, YouTube or whatever, to the people working, on union jobs. I think, yeah, I think everyone is safe for now.
Got a question here from Terry Briscoe, who always comes up with really good questions. Susie, it's getting harder and harder
Hello,
to get.
Terry.
Yeah, Susie, it's getting harder and harder to gauge rates, especially for international work. Do you use Gravy for the brain rate guide, or do you go with your own created rate guide? It's a good question. Again,
So thank you, Terry. I use a combination of Gravy for the Brain and GVAA. Um, I also use, if I'm working with Europe, I use Fee TV, which is like a UK website that gives you some guidelines. If I'm working with Germany, I use their kind of, they have a amazing rate card from their union, and so I use that. And the one thing I do that is maybe a little controversial, but I do it, is that if I'm working with someone from India or China and they offer me a bag of peanuts, I still use the GVAA card. Because if I'm recording in Portuguese or in English, this is not to be consumed in India. There, there's no Brazilian community there. So what's happening is that a lot of times things get farmed out to other countries so we can get paid less. So the end client is still paying the same rate, but there's like a chain of command that by the time the jobs get to us, the rate is really low. So I stick to my GVAA and Gravy for the Brain rate cards, and possibly lose quite a bit of work from it. But I just
that was
think
gonna
that,
be my question.
yeah.
How
But I think it
often
balances out
do they just
though.
go away?
Oh, you see, not that often, to be honest.
Huh,
Uh,
okay.
I
So,
mean,
you know
maybe
what,
yes,
and
but I mean, we're so used to auditioning and not getting the job. So I don't know if I didn't get the job because of the rates, but I'm not going to compete for a job just because I'm the cheapest one of the
yeah,
bunch,
yeah.
you know. So
Whoop.
so yeah,
Oh,
I
I
still.
didn't mean to hit the. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. We'll get back to that. I meant to bring up another thing, but here you are this last weekend at VO Atlanta with your bodyguard, your son Thomas,
Yes, my bodyguard, that's Thomas. Yes,
and
he's been.
he's been going to VO Atlanta since he was how old?
So he was 9 when he first went.
And
No, 8.
we were talking 8.
8.
Okay, we were talking before, and you said when you first went, because you're a single mom, it was either bring him or not go.
Yeah, exactly. So the first time I was like, oh, I don't know how it's gonna work. So I contacted Gerald that used to run View Atlanta then, and I was gonna be an ambassador, and I was like, 'cause obviously Gerald used to bring his kids and stuff. So I was like, I'm bringing my son. And Gerald, he was so awesome. He said, I'm gonna make him a junior ambassador. So we got there, and then Thomas like had he was kind of tagging along and helping me, doing whatever, filling up the bags before registration, and so that was the first time he went. And then since then, I just take him with me to most
And
places,
is he
and
doing
he's made
voiceover now
so
as
many
well?
friends. He used to do it then. So he started doing VO when he was 4. And he did it until he was about 10, 11. And then you have that kind of when voice starts to change, he kind of went into early retirement. Um, he's coming back to it now. But yeah, he did quite a lot when he was little, lots of commercials, was and some animation as well.
And then
But
the
yeah, he
voice.
made so many friends. Like he's got his own friend. He's got his own set of friends in conferences. It's quite. Yeah, it's really cool.
I meant to go to that screen. I didn't mean to go to it right then, but I'm glad that we got to see Thomas and you. He's a handsome young man. And Gerald, don't have a picture of it, but Gerald, who began VO Atlanta, and his son and daughter came every year. And at the wig party, when I was at the wig party, but I clearly don't need a wig, he brought his son, who we used to see when he was this tall, and now he's 6'3", 6'4", handsome guy.
Yep.
And I know Daddy needs a shotgun to keep the girls away from him. Got another question for you here. Hey, Susie, good to see you on ADFA. Hope we
Oh,
can work
hello.
together soon. I guess it wasn't a question, but it was a hello. That's okay.
Oh yes,
Uh,
because we met at that voiceover. I
yeah.
was doing the speed dating with your demo for casting. Yeah, hope we can
How
work
was this
together
demo?
soon.
Tell the world.
Very good. I remember. Very, very good.
Well, there you go. Let's see. Lyle McCarty, shout out to William Lyman, who voices Frontline on PBS. For the first time ever, AP and PBS Frontline won an Oscar last week. Uh, Not what we were talking about, but bravo to Frontline, and good for them to win an Oscar. I should have reread that at first. Susie, where would you suggest people look to get into localization? Mike Cunningham, excellent question.
So there's a lot of localization companies. If you have an agent, then obviously a lot of the localization work comes through agents. Um, I here in London, I get a lot of my work from agencies for localization, but you can contact the localization companies directly. There's loads of them all over the world. I would say the rates tend to be maybe a little lower than what you would expect. So you kind of have to be on the top of your kind of game when you talk to them about rates, and also other things like usage. Localization companies can sometimes not be very hot on usage, so you need to make sure that when you kind of sign up with them, even with the big ones, you always kind of, because they with an agency, with a normal agency, they tell you what the rate is, but with a localization company, they often come to you and ask how much you would charge, which is never a good thing, because that usually means that they're getting paid X and they're hoping to give you half of that. So yeah, I would say, if you kind of know what the rate should be, then you're in a better position to get something closer to what you should be getting, because localization companies, you don't know how much percentage they take. But there's a lot of work, so it's one of those that you kind of have to find the one that works well with you.
Okay, got a Lyle again. Dave, can you publish the links of those international rate cards that Susie just mentioned? Um, and I think you said what was it? Use
Use
T.
GVA,
How do
use
you
TV.
how do you spell that?
I think it's just use, as in USE
Mm-hmm.
dot TV, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. And that's one. And I
That's
just
one.
I just put it in the chat. What's another one?
GVAA
Oh
and
yeah.
Gravy for the Brain.
Now most of us here are very aware of GVAA, and some of us are aware of Gravy for the Brain. And if I could spell, I'd rule the world. Um, and did I get it right there? Yes, finally. Um,
And then there's the one from Germany, but the one from Germany, I don't remember from the top of my head, and it's
well,
in
those
German, which I
three
don't speak.
are very good. Um,
Yeah.
I have not used Gravy from the Brain. I have often suggested. I'm union talent and make scale, um, and sometimes above scale. Um, but this is also news to me. If I'm going to be working with foreign clients, which I would love to do, use TV, use .tv. And of course, I tell people about GVAA all the time. And just an aside, next Thursday, 5 o'clock, I'm going to be doing a workshop for them on voice acting for video games. If you're a GVAA member, or want to sign up, you can go to GVAA and do that. And Gravy for the Brain, if I am not mistaken, is that not based in the UK?
In the UK, yeah, in the UK. I mean, I would say that if you are based in the I mean, I personally use the GVAA 90% of the time. That's like my go-to. But I like to familiarize myself with the other ones as well. It's just so you kind of have an idea. The use TV one is UK, only applicable to UK agencies and production companies, and it's quite like, but I would say that if you aren't in the US or if you're anywhere really. The GVA one is the one that it has everything. It's more complete. It has, the Gravy for the Brain is also very good, but I use the GVAA one the most.
Okay, got another
When I
question
mean,
here.
I work through agencies a lot. That's for work, obviously. Oh,
Yeah.
hi, Peepa.
See, hey, it's a family. People have asked, hi, Susie. In your experience, are localization companies normally flexible in terms of negotiating rates, or is there more of a challenge?
But I would say they're flexible in getting the rates down. I mean,
Yeah, they're not flexible in the direction
honestly,
you want to go in.
very flexible. Yeah, if you want to get $10, but yeah, no, generally speaking, I mean, a lot of my work comes from agencies. Um, because I used to work a lot with localization companies, and then I found, because I have agents, that sometimes I was undercutting myself because I had, like, you know a couple of jobs that came through an agent for X amount of money, and then I came from a localization company from half the X, and I ended up getting the job through them because the client went with the cheapest option.
Oh
So
boy.
after that happened a few times, that was like with the companies in London. And because I am well represented in London, I kind of left some of the London localization companies for that reason, because I was undercutting myself really. But yeah, so I think they're very tough to get. I'm talking about commercials. With corporate stuff, it's more straightforward, and obviously corporate or telephony, anything like that, it's more straightforward. Anything that involves usage becomes a little complicated with the localization companies, in my experience.
Um, let's talk a little bit about your experience with localization and oh, you know what? You also do a lot of commercials. I was looking at your client list, and it's pretty large. What are some of the companies you've worked for?
Oh, kayak. Um, my mind just went blank. Kayak, Disney, Visit Orlando recently, um, Unilever, Google, HSBC. Yeah, quite a few.
Okay, I've got another question for you. AI is getting better and better. I think it offers perhaps an opportunity, but it definitely could be a problem for us in this industry, and especially in localization. What are the things that you have heard, and what are the things that you know are going on in AI that A, could benefit us, and B, might be something we need to worry about?
Uh, um, I think it's already happening with people of other languages. I think that what's happening, starting to happen, is that a lot of things are recorded in English. So the English speaking talent have less to worry about in that sense. And then everything that was localized, which is pretty much the bread and butter of every single other language aside from English, is starting to kind of go AI way. So that means
Because
that
they are translating language to language in AI.
well, but yeah, but before you would have, like, say you get a game, and on that game you would have a studio in Brazil doing the Brazilian version, a studio in Germany, one in France, and one, doing all the different languages. Now there are contracts already appearing with the option of the original actor, or originals in like the English speaking actor, to get paid a percentage, like a tiny percentage, like 6%, 8% of to speak a language that they don't speak, to have the AI version of themselves speaking German, Russian, Chinese, or whatever, you know, And then some people, and I've heard that from some people, see that as an opportunity for the speaking people. Now, as a foreign actor, I'm horrified because I think it's morally wrong. You're putting out entire nations out of work, like literally,
Yeah.
because it's not just the voice actors, the studios, it's the engineers, it's the directors. I mean, I think that it's possible that that might not actually work very well because obviously, if you go to the other countries and everything is AI'd, the people making the game probably think, oh, they'll be fine. But actually, because when you localize something, you're not just translating, you are changing certain things to make it uh, kind of more culturally appropriate. So that's not going to happen because the AI can't do that. And you change certain things that are, so it's not like so I'm hoping that that would be enough for them to try and then go back to using humans. But it's pretty scary because there's a lot of people already losing work
There,
on
there
a
are so there's
big
so many
scale.
there are so many different ways of saying things in other languages that there's not an exact translation, and sometimes the exact translation doesn't make any sense. There's so
Yeah.
many cultural things. Um, I know in places like Iceland and Greenland, um, they have many different descriptions of snow. We've got snow or slush. Uh, and I just don't see, if you try to translate a joke into other languages, sometimes it doesn't work because there's no cultural handle to hang on to for that particular
Exactly.
culture. Um, Also, the music of different languages. I have a feeling that at some point they'll be able to get there with AI, that it's much better. But I know now, I always know when it's AI. And it always leaves me a little, ugh. Uh,
Yeah,
I,
I mean, I think that it will come to that, isn't it? Like if people stop buying something because it puts them off, then they will.
my fear is, if you're flipping through TikTok, you're hearing a lot of AI voices. Some of the voices are very good. Some of the basic reads are very good, but how phrases end, and sometimes the words are mispronounced because, I know in English, we spell some things very different that don't sound like what they're spelled like. And if you don't know, you don't know. I just wonder, um, will people get used to hearing AI and accept it? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I would say because obviously I've got 15 year old at home, but his views are probably different because as we know, he sort of grew up going to voiceover conferences and knows tons of voice actors. So maybe his hearing is different, but he hates it. Like he doesn't like it.
Yes,
He doesn't think he thinks
there's
that,
hope for the future.
commercials is like, oh, don't they have money to pay a real person to do this commercial? It just kind of cheapens the product.
Well,
But
he of course will have a different perspective than his fellows who have not had the entrance, the experience of the voiceover community and what his mom does, and so many of his friends and her friends. Um, I hope that he can influence his friends. I'm sure his circle isn't big enough to make a huge dent in the world, uh, but I'm hoping that both what you hear not being as human as it should be, and the idea of workers of the world unite, uh, that this doesn't
yeah,
need to be another way that the general working public gets a kick in the butt. I don't like, when I go to the grocery stores, I don't like the self service. Well, you should pay me. if I'm checking myself out. Um, I don't like the idea of robots that are delivering your food. I don't like the
Oh,
idea of so much mechanization. We need some it's definitely going to help us, but human beings need work, something to do. Unless hey,
exactly.
unless we're just going to send everybody a check every month.
Yeah, but even then, you need to do something, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, then you could spend more
Even
time
if
doing the things you love. Uh,
train the robots.
it, we are. It's a wonderful world and a scary world all at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that certain things, obviously, like I do a lot of phone systems.
Hmm.
That's gonna go. Like I know. I mean, that being said, I do one particular phone system that is quite big for a big tech company in Brazil, like one of the main ones. They may or may not be called after a fruit. Um,
That may or may not
so
be. Oh, called after fruit. I
could
get.
be a fruit. Yeah. So I'm the voice of their system, and they're still using humans. I mean, they're still using me because they want something that is friendly. And although obviously phone systems are AI by nature, because obviously you are concatenating the different words and stuff, you still need a human, you know, delivering those lines.
Yeah.
That being said, I am recording less for them than I have in the past, but I'm still recording. So I don't think we're gonna kind of be completely. I think what's might happen is that the things that are the very low jobs are gonna go very quickly, and then we are going to need to specialize and become so good at being humans that they go like, oh yeah, I'll go with her because if we're doing a commercial, like say you have a commercial and you have a 1 hour session to do something that is like a 10-second script, and they take an hour to direct a person to do that really short script. I don't see how that can be swapped by AI easily, because obviously you kind of there's a lot of things that get conveyed, with
There,
advertising, for example.
there is a perfect imperfection to how we speak that makes us human.
Exactly.
And then there are things that are just how we end phrases, how we, uh, the music of our voices that often gets lost, the pauses, the thoughts, the finding our words, all of those kinds of things that just go away with AI. Um, I'm very frustrated, and often when I'm on the phone and you're trying to call for some kind of service, and of course it's an AI voice, and uh, they often don't. The thing that you want is not one of your choices. We need a human being there. You need the option to go to a human being, and I know sometimes if you dial the zero, you can finally, oh, you're a human
Smash the
being, thank
phone.
God. Uh, because not everything that we need handled is going to be on their little list of, and the first thing you always get to is, would you like to pay your bill? They're going to get their money. Oh, let's end on a high note. Tell me something wonderful about what's going on with you, your work, something that happened at VO Atlanta.
Oh man, I had such a great time at Vio Atlanta. I have to say that I'm tired, a little bit tired, but it was really, really good. It was just awesome to see everyone and to catch up. I love, like, we go to this event and get to see you and like everyone that you see once or twice a year. Like, it's just awesome. And I met up with one of my agents that I've talked to on email so many
Who
times, and it's
was it?
just really nice when you kind of Suzanne from ASP.
Oh, yeah, I got Spaziani. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
to talk.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting. I had just gotten a job from her like a week or so before. So it was like,
Yeah,
oh,
me
so.
too, me too, me too. Same, same, same. Yeah, I've had one recently, so that was it's really nice when you go like, oh, I mean, obviously you go, for to learn and everything. But I think it's almost like a family reunion. Um,
Oh, it's better than a
and you
family
kind of,
reunion.
oh
You know,
yeah,
because
actually, yeah,
at your
yeah,
family reunion, you're going to run into your crazy uncle, and your grandma
yeah,
that
yeah,
can't hear but
yeah.
refuses to wear her earbuds.
So maybe not fun. Maybe a school reunion, I guess, more than a family reunion. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's great
even
to go
even
and
better than
see
that.
everyone. Telling people, yeah, I love it. It was really really great, and yeah, meeting Suzanne was a highlight because I've just spoken to her so many times on email. It's nice to kind of go and hug people, and yeah,
There you go.
so that's the highlight.
Well, Susie, I want to say thank you for joining me on Ask Dave for Know Anything. I also want to put it out there. I didn't approach you at VO Atlanta and ask you. We
No,
set this up weeks ago, um,
now we set this up ages ago. Yeah,
ages ago, and it was just coincidence that you happened to be there, and I
yeah.
got to see your son again, and
Yeah, I was not gonna go actually. I was not gonna go again. The universe. I was not gonna go, and then a friend of mine said, "Oh, I have a room at the hotel and I can't make it." So I
oh,
literally booked like last minute because there was no rooms. I was like, "Okay, I
well,
have to go
I'll
then." I
just
think that's
take
a
your
sign.
plane ticket and I'll
So
just
yeah,
turn it all
I
over to
was
me
like,
and I'll be
"Okay."
there. Well, I'm so glad you came. It was great to see you. And we shall talk soon. And what's your next conference? Where are you going
My
next?
next conference, I think I'm going to Dallas. I might be speaking in Dallas even. I have to confirm that with JMC. But yes, probably Dallas.
All right. Well, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, there she is, Susie Valerio, and my guest. Great conversation. Good to hear from her. Susie, don't go anywhere. I'll be right back as I say goodbye. I want to remind you all the Ask Dave Fennoy Anythings live on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training. If you would be so kind as to subscribe, DaveFennoy.com is my website. If you'd like some coaching, you can go there, click the Study VO tab at the top. Follow me at Dave Fennoy VO. And until next time, here's what I want you to do. You know what I'm going to say. Say it to get with me together. And book something.